Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Dragon Ball Shattered Timelines. This will be a Dragon Ball What If channel focusing on some of the more bizarre what if scenarios. I thought an interesting first hypothetical would be what if Universe 6 and 7 were always just one combined universe. This story will feature characters from all three of canon, the movies, and the anime, making for a unique story. Before we jump in, make sure to follow the channel, and let's set a like goal of 100 for the next part. Let's start with a backdrop of our combined universe to set the stage. There are two Saiyan planets in the universe, both located in the southern part of the universe, Planet Vegeta and Planet Sadala. Planet Vegeta is of course inhabited by Saiyans with tails and are ruled by King Vegeta. Meanwhile, Sadalans more resemble the Saiyans we see in Universe 6 without tails and are currently ruled by King Sadala. The Vegetan Saiyans have a history as arms for hire in various wars across the universe, but they are not as savage as we see in Universe 7 canon. The Sadalan Saiyans' moral code is in line with what we are accustomed to from canon, fighting for justice, protecting those in need. These two groups of Saiyans currently have a treaty referred to as the Saiyan Accords, which, while mainly a military peace treaty, also requires separation of the two groups and explicitly forbids romantic relationships between the two factions. This brings us to the beginning of our protagonist's story. In this universe, Bardock is still a low-level Vegetan Saiyan, however Guinea is the daughter of King Sadala. Raditz, Bardock's eldest son, has a different mother, however Kakarot is still the child of Bardock and Guinea in this universe, making Kakarot's existence forbidden and a risk to the peace between the two factions. Kakarot is still sent to Earth in this universe, this time in order to preserve the peace between the two Saiyan factions as a bastard child born into royalty. His upbringing on Earth is identical to canon to the start of Z. Frieza, operating primarily out of the western portion of the universe, does not rule over the Vegetans as the treaty between the two Saiyan factions includes a military alliance preventing either from being ruled by a third party. We will go over the composition of Frieza's army and the other warring factions, battling for control over the universe and its trade routes later. It's age 761, originally the year Raditz meets Goku. In this timeline he is on the planet Kanasa, conquering it along with Nappa for one of the warring factions. As long as the payment clears, he isn't too concerned with the source. As he is wrapping up, a lone Kanasan sneaks behind him, striking him in the back of the neck, knocking him out. When he comes to, Nappa is standing over him, mocking him for getting caught, not ready for such a weak creature. That night, Raditz has a vision, and he sees a figure that resembles his father, but younger and less scarred. He hears the words, "A child of Sadalan grace and Vegetan grit, cast to Earth. He will bring the Saiyans together, or destroy them." Raditz wakes up in a sweat and sneaks off to his pod. His destination, Earth. When Raditz arrives on Earth, he activates his scouter and soon finds Piccolo. Not even knowing Kakarot's Saiyan name, he is still able to explain what he looks like to the point that Piccolo knows who he is referring to. Now, because Vegetan Saiyans are slightly less cruel in this universe, Raditz doesn't attempt to fight Piccolo, instead just moving on to Goku, who is at Kame House with Gohan, Roshi, Bulma, and Krillin. Raditz lands on the island in complete disbelief as he looks upon the spitting image of his father, who I should point out is still alive in this timeline. Raditz confronts Goku about being a Saiyan, but Goku has no idea what he is talking about. Raditz is just about to pass it off as a huge coincidence since Goku doesn't even have a tail, until he notices Gohan's. He asks Goku if he had a tail before, and Goku confirms that he used to. At this point, Raditz knows there must be something to his vision, but instead of demanding that Goku come with him, he elects to just return to Planet Vegeta without conflict to confront his father, and if need be, report it to the king. When Raditz arrives on Planet Vegeta, he immediately goes to question his father about who he assumes is his half-brother. Bardock initially denies it, but after additional probing questions, he relents and admits to being the father and that the mother was the daughter of King Sadala. Raditz is shocked and he goes to King Vegeta to warn him of the prophecy and his half-brother. King Vegeta, upon hearing this news, orders the immediate arrest of Bardock, who has already fled for Planet Sadala. So now both the Vegetans and the Sadalans are aware of Goku's existence. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Goku, Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, Piccolo, and Tien have been busy training after sensing just how powerful Raditz was when he visited. They primarily use Kami's lookout, not going to King Kai's planet. This means that Goku will not have access to Kaioken or Spirit Bomb techniques. Goku does remember the hyperbolic time chamber though, but nobody is strong enough to last more than a couple months in there at this point. They also decided to destroy the moon after Krillin explained to Goku about his transformations as a child, so that they wouldn't need to worry about it should the Saiyans return. It is now age 763, 1.5 years after Raditz originally arrived. This is 6 months after Vegeta and Nappa arrived in canon because Raditz had to travel back to planet Vegeta to relay the news, followed by the travel back to Earth. Both Saiyan factions have sent contingents to Earth to bring Goku in. From the Vegetans, it's Raditz, Nappa, and their squad lead Tarbell. The Sadolans have sent Cabba, Caulifla, and their squad lead Renzo. So let's go over power levels for all three sides before any conflicts begin. For the Z Warriors, Goku is at 15,000, Piccolo is at 8,000, Krillin, Tien, and Gohan are all at 5,000, and Yamcha is at 4,000. The longer period of training, the hyperbolic time chamber, and Goku's presence drastically increase everyone's power levels, although not having the ability to use Kaioken caps Goku's power ceiling at a much lower number. For the Vegetans, Tarbell is at 20,000, Nappa is at 15,000, and Raditz is at 10,000. Their power levels are higher in this timeline because training isn't frowned upon in Saiyan culture without Frieza running anti-training propaganda on them. The Sadolans have Renzo at 25,000, Caulifla is at 18,000, and Cabba has a power level of 11,000. Sadolan Saiyans are slightly more powerful in their base form, but they don't have access to the Uzara form because they don't have tails, meaning they are at an incredible disadvantage when there is a moon. The Vegetan Saiyans arrive first, confronting Earth's fighters 3 vs 6. Raditz initially tries to convince Goku to come with them, but when he refuses, Nappa grows frustrated and, upon reading their power levels all below 2,000, he decides he'll let his Cybermen do some dirty work for him. Little does Nappa know, they were all able to suppress their power levels. So Nappa plants 6 Cybermen in the soil, and they each sprout at 1,000. He tells all 6 of them to attack, but Yamcha, Krillin, and Tien easily handle them. Next, Raditz fights against those 3 while Nappa takes on Piccolo and Gohan, leaving Tarbell to face off against Goku. Raditz has his hands full with Krillin, Tien, and Yamcha. He can easily overpower them 1-on-1, and even 2-on-1 he could hold his own, but 3-on-1 is too much as he feels himself losing ground. He is also ill-prepared for the after-image technique because of his inability to sense ki, something all 3 of these fighters have had plenty of time perfecting in their time training. He is growing increasingly frustrated as their numbers overwhelm his raw power. Nappa is having better luck against Piccolo and Gohan, because even though they have the numbers, he has the higher total power level. At one point, Nappa is able to knock Gohan into a nearby mountain, allowing him to really punish Piccolo for a few seconds. Now, there is something to point out about Gohan. He wasn't ever kidnapped in this timeline, and he's had an extra 6 months to train, so he's actually a much more willing fighter here. Seeing Piccolo get beat close to within an inch of his life, Gohan loses control and his power level shoots up to 15,000, matching Nappa's power. They go back and forth, with there being no David or Goliath in this fight despite their size differences. Goku and Tarbell start their fight off in a more calculated fashion. Tarbell is not quite as strong as his brother, but he is much more of a strategist, a skill set he was forced to develop in order to stay competitive with Vegeta growing up. He isn't cocky, but he is sure of himself in this fight, even knowing Goku is concealing his full power. Goku tries an after-image, but Tarbell is able to sniff it out quickly, showing he is no slouch when it comes to technique. Goku is quickly realizing that he isn't a match for Tarbell when he senses 3 key signatures arriving in Earth's atmosphere. He can't put his finger on what the difference is, but while these new keys do feel similar to the Saiyans they are currently fighting, they also feel distinctly different. The fights go back and forth until Raditz is able to knock out Yamcha, nearly killing him before being blinded by a solar flare from Krillin and knocked unconscious himself thanks to a neck shot from Tien. Just as this happens, the Sadolans arrive. Nappa, seeing the tides are turning against them, decides to throw up an artificial moon. Since the Sadolans don't have tails, they won't get the benefit from the Blitz waves. As Nappa and Tarbell transform, the Earth and Sadolan forces gather quickly and try to come up with a game plan. Tarbell is now at 200,000 and Nappa is at 100,000, slightly weaker due to generating the artificial moon and his previous battles. Gohan's tail was removed during training, so he doesn't transform. In canon he grew his tail back, but here he is a quarter Sadolan, making the genes for his tail even more recessive, so no Uzara form to bail the team out here. The Z-Fighters and Sadolan scatter, darting in and out of the Uzara's vision, looking for an opening to cut off tails. They first are able to isolate Nappa while distracting Tarbell, and just as they are able to get an opening on Nappa's tail, Tarbell swats Renzo out of the way. This unwittingly leaves his tail open for an attack, and Krillin capitalizes with the Destructo Disc through Tarbal's tail, bringing him back to his normal form. Nappa, always the reactionary, senses things are getting very bad for him at this point, and in a last-ditch effort launches a mouth beam right at Gohan. Cabba jumps in the way of the beam though, sacrificing himself to save the child. This infuriates Caulifla and Renzo, and the group as a whole takes Nappa on, quickly taking off his tail and shrinking him down to normal size. Beaten and bloodied, Nappa, Tarbal, and Raditz, who has by now regained consciousness, escape to their pods and flee. Caulifla attempts to shoot the pods out of the air, but Renzo stops her. As they watch the pods disappear into space, Caulifla lets out a roar at the loss of her teammate. Krillin mentions that they can bring Cabba back with the Dragon Balls, shocking Caulifla and Renzo. They have heard rumors of wish orbs before, but they thought they were just that, rumors. That does it for this first episode of Dragon Ball Shattered Timelines. What if Universe 6 and 7 were combined? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode. Leave a comment of ideas you'd like to see for what ifs in the future, and like the video so we can hit our like goal of 100. Tune in next time to see how the two Saiyan factions react to this battle.